Dobre den. Here we are in Prague. This is the boyfriend. And we've been dating 4 years and we've traveled to 6 countries together and done about 24 trips together, both internationally and domestically. So we wanted to give you some advice on what it's like traveling with a significant other and how you can make it as smooth as possible. So let's walk around Prague and talk about that. So the number one thing any couple traveling should know or understand before you travel together, even if you have traveled together, is that you will inevitably fight. Lots of couples that we meet, including ourselves, when we first traveled, we were like, oh, we never fight. We're so good at communicating. This doesn't happen to us. And what happened?
Oh, we fight. We fight over everything. I woke you up this morning, you fought me there.
You're together like the whole time. 24/7. Like, even if you live together, the thing is you still like go to work or you have friends, you have other things you can do where you're not the whole time. But when you're traveling, you're pretty much like that the whole time. So there's lots of different ways to fight. There's no one right way to fight for each couple because you're all different, but I don't know any couple that travels and doesn't fight when they travel. So just recognize that, be prepared for it, and work on your communication and understand that it's just going to be a little bit tense. It's a ton of fun to travel, but it's also going to be a little tense.
It's important to note that you might have your first fight while you're on this trip.
Yes.
And it doesn't necessarily mean anything is wrong with your relationship style, relationship habits, or anything like that. It's just a sign that you guys are experiencing yourselves in different ways. And that doesn't hurt the relationship, it helps it. As long as you're able to recuperate from it, then you won't have any problems.
Dobre den. We're sitting outside Bratislava Castle. So we said that you can expect a fight. That's just what happens, particularly if you're traveling together for the first time. But the basis of that fight might differ for you. For us, we fought over differing travel styles. For example, myself, I'm very go, go, go. I want to see everything. I plan everything out. I have itineraries and schedules. I don't ever want to come back from a vacation well rested. I want to come back exhausted, but with a lot of experiences.
I work 252 days out of the year, and all I have to myself are usually weekends. So my travel style is a little bit more relaxed than hers. I'll go to a hotel, take showers, enjoy comforts of amenities that the hotel offers. I'll go out and see things. That's not really where we're drawing the line, but what we really like to do, what I like to do at least, is just kind of go and really just relax, take some time off, enjoy the vacation for what it is.
So that would cause like a lot of fights. I remember in Argentina, he wanted to spend a whole day just sitting in the hotel relaxing, and I literally yelled at him, I did not spend $1,000 on a plane ticket to get you down here to relax. You can do that at home. You're gonna come out and do some stuff. So what we eventually did is you have to compromise. When you travel with a partner, you're gonna have to compromise. So what we ended up doing is we split the day into thirds. The first third of the day is mine. That's where we go and see like a specific thing. We'll go to castles or museums.
The reason why the first third is really hers is because at the morning, you know, it's sunrise, the temperatures are great, the sun's usually in the right position, it's not pouring rain usually. It's a nice part of the day.
The second third of the day will be his. That's where we can go back to the hotel, relax.
Think of it as a siesta.
Yeah. And then
the third part of the day is really ours, so something we both want to do together. It's where you go out, you go get dinner. What we did for the third part of the day on our last country in Prague, we decided to go to...
we climbed up this hill that a barista had mentioned to me that had this giant metronome. We didn't really know anything about it. We hadn't done any research. We just saw it on the map and headed towards it. It
kind of turned out to be more of a, locals, kids kind of thing, but it's still just the idea of being able to go out, go do something, relax, enjoy the sight, the view of whatever country you're in really tends to help.
So it's a good mix between his spontaneity. We don't really plan that last third of the day. We just will wander out and do something. But my also just need to feel like I've done something for the day. So when you travel with a significant other, you're gonna have to recognize that your travel styles are gonna be different. They might be very different, like ours were, or just a little bit different. But either way, you can't force the other person to like your travel style. If you want to have total control over a trip, you just need to take a trip by yourself. If you want to take a trip with another person, you need to find that area of compromise and really listen to them about what's really important to them.
Guten Tag! We're here at Schönbrunn Palace in Austria.
In the gardens, which are beautiful by the way. A special consideration when you're traveling as a couple is types of accommodations. When we started traveling internationally, I was really focused on traveling as cheap as possible. So I wanted to stay in hostels with $8 a night. But we quickly learned that cheap and hostels are not always the way to go when you're traveling as a couple.
I feel a lot of the drawbacks of a hostel were lack of privacy, lack of comfort in a way. Most hostels will be kind of a bunk bed style, dorm room type facility where you have common living spaces, common bathroom, common bedroom even, not a lot of privacy available to you.
And as a couple, that can be a bit of an issue. Like we said, you will inevitably fight. And I personally would rather be dealing with differences of opinion in a private room rather than out in the public or in a room we're sharing with 8 people. Even if you do find a private room in a hostel, which is totally possible, they're hard to come by and they often don't have their own bathroom, which may matter to you or may not. Our travel style is not necessarily the same for all couples. I know plenty of couples who travel and do hostels and they're fine with that. We tend to go for middle ground like Airbnb, which tends to be cheaper than hotels. We'll look at the hotel websites as well. And also what we've been doing on this trip is apartments that aren't necessarily Airbnb, but we found that they've been cheaper than hotels because you don't get all the amenities, but you still get a private bedroom, private bathroom, and oftentimes a kitchen. See ya! We're here in Budapest, Hungary, and it's time to talk about money. When most couples go traveling for the first time together, whether it's domestic or international, they tend to just say, oh, well, let's just split it down the middle, half and half. That, however, does not always work.
My travel style, as we've discussed, is a bit more relaxed. I tend to spend a little bit more money on things, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's a comfort factor for me. I like to be able to be relaxed. And that may mean that I spend a little bit more money than her on the trip, but ultimately it means that we both get the same experience out of wherever it is we're traveling to.
Yeah, so the big thing is, if you split it down half and half, then you need to have the same expectations of what you're paying for. If you say half and half and then one of you keeps ordering a big expensive bottle of wine at every meal or wants to pay for big excursions and the other one doesn't, that's going to foster a lot of bitterness in the relationship. You either need to be on the same page of what you're willing to pay for, or the person who wants the more expensive things just needs to accept that they might be paying a little bit more than the other person to get those things. But in the end, we try to even it out to half and half on overall trips. So rather than nitpicking about each little thing, like, hey, you owe me 3 koruna or 5 pesos or 6 euros for that meal we just had, I'll write it down in a little book how much each person is paying. We get home and we just sort of see who paid. Did we pay about even? Did someone pay a little bit more? And then for the next trip, we take that into account. So for example, when we went to Central America, I paid for a lot of it. I was paying for hostels and flights. I think you paid for flights.
I did pay for flights.
Okay, he paid for flights, I was paying for hostels and pretty much everything else. When I was studying abroad in Argentina, I paid for flights, he paid for hotels, and we sort of split everything else down the middle. Here we split hotels and flights down the middle from the get-go, and now we're sort of kind of going back and forth of I'll pay for a meal, he'll pay for a meal, I'll pay for a meal, he'll pay for a meal. And as we write it down, it kind of keeps us accountable for, we'll see, okay, he spent a lot yesterday, or I spent a lot yesterday. Maybe it's the next person's turn to take that on.
When we say split half and half, that doesn't mean 50% of the total cost. That means it could mean a factor of 60-40, you know, depending upon what the overall percentage is of what it is that we're doing. You know, I can't expect her to account for all of the meals or all of the excursions that we would do, but splitting down half and half doesn't necessarily mean 50% of total cost.